Good morning. In this week's parasha of Balak, we have the famous blessings of the prophet Bilam, where he says the most wonderful things about the Jewish people. And the two questions that we have are, why was Bilam chosen to bless the Jewish people and that his prophecies would be recorded? And number two, why does he have prophecies which are so magnificent and over the top? We find when Yaakov blesses the Jewish people, when Moshe blesses the Jewish people, they have some nice things to say, some criticisms, and yet Bilam just has wonderful things to say. So I'd like to quote from three different works. The first one, Baruch She'amar by Baruch Halevi Epstein. The second one, the Magid of Dubno on the Torah. And the third one, the Maharal of Prague in his book Netzach Yisrael. And we'll work from a straightforward level and go a little deeper. So the first thing is that Rabbi Epstein said, why Balak? Why Bilam? Well, why not Bilam? What he said was true. And so why shouldn't we record what he said, regardless of the fact that he was a terrible and wicked person? And this is the principle that the Rambam says in Moreh Nevuchim, Kabel ha'emet mimi she'omro, accept the truth regardless of who says it. If Bilam said the truth, then we want to know what he said. It's very easy sometimes to get so caught up in who's saying something that you don't pay attention and evaluate critically the content of what they're saying. You have some very great and insightful people who are dead wrong. And you have people who you do not expect to be saying true or insightful or deep or holy things. And yet what they say is incredibly valuable. And so we put Bilam's prophecy. The Bilam's prophecy is in the Torah, and our sages even put it in the Siddur. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov. How beautiful, how good are your tents, Yaakov. Mishkanotecha Israel, your dwelling place Israel, speaking praises about the home and the shul. We put that right in the beginning to teach you this lesson. If it's true, it's true. And don't think all the time about who's saying it, think about whether it's true or not. That's point one. The second point Rabbi Epstein says is that we are a little wary or cautious if we hear a professional Jew saying something good about the Jewish people, because that's expected. Obviously, well, that's what they're going to say. Right? I get up on a Friday night and tell somebody, you need to do more mitzvot. So, okay, but that's what the rabbi's paid to say, right? So somebody, a Jewish leader, says wonderful things about the Jewish people. Okay, so that's what he says about the Jewish people. He wants to keep his job. There's that little bit of cautious cynicism, whereas somebody who is not a member of the Jewish people says nice things. Somebody who is an enemy of the Jewish people says nice things. Oof, we love that. We are blown away. That's, in fact, if you want to look back and you see the kinds of things which are quoted in praise of the Jewish people, it's always by people who are not Jewish. Mark Twain, Leo Tolstoy, our day's Colonel Richard Kemp, right? But you see, we get so excited when it's somebody who's not Jewish because we feel that they're really coming from an honest perspective. So that's why we want to put what Bilam says is, because, right, Bilam we know is not got a vested interest in saying that. Just by the way, that explanation is premised. All of these explanations really are premised on the idea that when Hashem gives Bilam the words to say in the brachot, he's not dictating to him word for word exactly what he should be saying, but rather he's opening his eyes and letting him see the truth and Bilam's blessing. Because if Hashem's putting the words in his mouth, then it could be Bilam, it could be his donkey. It doesn't actually make a difference who is saying the blessing. So that's this first explanation is that we want to accept the truth regardless of who says it. The second explanation is that it gives us a sense of greater objectivity when it's somebody who's not a part of the Jewish people. The Magid of Dubno gives a different explanation and a little bit deeper. He says that when one of our prophets is giving a blessing, he looks at it very precisely. He works out exactly what is worthy of blessing, what isn't worthy of blessing, what should be recognized, what shouldn't be recognized, what's a good thing, what's not a good thing. He looks at it so carefully and critically, and then he gives this honest evaluation. Whereas Bilam, as somebody who was simply gifted with prophecy, without really going through the inner development and bringing himself to that stage, Bilam just said it. He just said nice things. Magid of Dubno compares it to somebody who's worked hard for his money or somebody who wins the lottery. Somebody who's worked hard for it is very careful about how he spends it. Somebody who wins the lottery, he just gives it all away. Right? Bilam had never developed the critical view and the depth of insight as to seeing what's really worthy and what's not. So he just gave a wonderful blessing. And then he says that's what Hashem wanted. That's what Hashem wanted. Because there are times that the Jewish people are not worthy of 100% blessing, but he wanted them to have 100% blessing. And so he gave this power to somebody who would not be quite so critical and honest. Now this is very interesting because it seems to be a mirror image of what we just said. We said that we worried our forefathers would be biased in our favor. And in fact, we want somebody objective, but what the Maggid is saying is the other way around. In fact, our forefathers would be objective. We want somebody biased in our favor. Keep that in mind. We're going on to the next point, which is the explanation of the Maharal of Prague, where he says, when you look at the outcome of what people do, when you look at the choices they make, when you look at where it manifests, where the inner essence of a person manifests in the outside world, it's always a mixed bag. As wonderful as the person is, there's no person on earth who does only good and never sins. People make good choices, they make bad choices, they don't have perfect insight or knowledge. And so even somebody whose essence is of the purest goodness will not always be able to express that pure goodness. And so if you're looking at the consequences, you will have a mixed view. If you're looking at the essence, you'll just see goodness of a really good and holy person. You'll just see goodness. And so the Maharal of Prague says, when it comes to the fathers and prophets of the Jewish people, they never were able to give this perspective of true goodness because as members of the Jewish people, they could not perceive their own essence. You need an outside view for that. The analogy is your eyeball. You cannot see your own eye. You see through your eye, but you cannot see that. The best you can ever see is a reflection of it. And that was the situation of our forefathers and of our prophets as well. They can only see the externals, the outcomes of the Jewish people. They can't ever see to their essence because they are a part of that essence. Whereas Bilam, who was an external person, was able to really see that and just see that beautiful, pure holiness. And that was what he wanted to praise on. And what's so interesting about the interaction of these different approaches is that they all seem to be contradictory, but I think if we understand the level that we're speaking about, we'll see how they're each true, just on the surface and deeper and deeper. The first one is that people tend to have predispositions, prejudice, prejudgment, before they've really examined the issue. That's where Rabbi Baruch Halevi is speaking from. That I'm just looking at it, I'm inclined to say good things, I'm inclined to say bad things. We want Bilam, who's inclined to say bad things, to really recognize that it's good. That's number. The next one is, even when I look at the evidence, you have people who look at it fairly superficially and draw a conclusion quite quickly, and you have people who really take a detailed and analytical approach. The forefathers would have taken a detailed and analytical. This is when you pass the original bias. Forefathers would have taken a detailed and analytical approach. We wanted somebody who would just draw his conclusions and give a positive report. That was Bilam. That's number 2. And then number 3 is that as analytical and critical and perceptive as you are, there are levels of truth that you are sometimes simply unable to perceive. And our forefathers were never able to see the essence of the Jewish people because they were a part of that. And so they could never tap in to praise for that. Whereas Bilam, who was not a member of the Jewish people, could have that objectivity, could really see that depth, and was therefore able to give the blessing. So those are the 3 approaches. Again, the first one was accept the truth regardless of who says it. But then we have Bilam, because he's prejudiced against us. But he also is willing to draw conclusions without having really totally understood every aspect of it. But finally, that he's able to see the depth and essence of the Jewish people. Shabbat Shalom.